what we did, and what we're still working on, is as I said, we split the linguistic area into two modes, and we split the gestural area as well. But the most important thing that we did was to say we needed a meta-language to understand the way that these modes made meaning. So for alphabetical literacy, for writing, we had what we call grammar. So that was a meta-language for understanding parts of speech, how sentences hung together, how text was created. But we didn't have the same across those other modes. So we put together 5 questions that we thought, which comes from Hallidayan functional linguistics for us, but modified, 5 questions you could ask across those modes, which would help anyone understand the impact that mode was having and how to design it for the most powerful kind of meaning you could have. So those 5 areas were representation, what does, a word refer to, or what does an image refer to? What does a sound connect to? What do gestures refer to? Reference was one question we asked against all those modes. The second one was, what's the social component? Who are the participants in that meaning-making mode? How does that affect the meaning? Who's there? Who's absent? The way in which those components are related. The third question was organizational. How, in each one of these modes, are the elements organized? What's in the front? What's in the back? What's at the beginning? What's right? What's left? What follows? The question of organization is a way of understanding, again, the power or the lack of power of any artifact that uses any one of those modes. And finally, and really importantly for us, was what we call ideological or interest. In whose interests does the artifact or text serve? Whether it's multimodal, whether it's linguistic, whether it's visual, whether it's about the way space is designed. Is it to keep people out or to let people in? Whether it's gestural or audio, is it to kind of have a particular influence on you, to make you think one way or make you think another way. So those 5 questions allowed us to think of grammar in a different way, not in a traditional way, allowed us to talk about multimodality and have a design principle with questions of comparability across each one of those modes. In that sense, elevating each of the mode to the same power as alphabetical or symbolic literacy has. Our thinking, since we started this project, over a quarter of a century, 24 years ago, has evolved, and currently we are putting together a volume for Cambridge University Press on this. And at the moment, what we've come up with in rethinking how we might develop an adequate meta-language or a useful meta-language, which was helpful to educators and others who wanted to understand the way in which the different modes operate and how multimodality might have enormous power. So we've come up with the 7 meaning forms, slightly modified to text and image, space, object, body, sound, and speech. And the questions we ask now relate to reference, of course, agency, structure, context, and interest. So that's the framework for now developing and adding examples of the way in which each mode has had impact and power and how they can work within any meaning-making domain. We started with parallelism, what could work across the different modes. But we know, of course, that that's not the case for every type of way in which people make meaning. So although there are parallelism, there are also very important disjunctions. Like, for example, a movie has a different kind of set of affordances and ways of expressing a meaning than a novel. And an image can never do the same thing as what happens in a description. So as we're developing this work, we will be filling that out more, but I just want to note at this point that the parallelism of the 5 questions isn't the only thing we have to account for with multimodality. For example, if I say the mountains loomed large, what do you think? How does that make meaning for you? Which mountain are you thinking about? Where is it? You know, there's information in that sentence which is meaningful, but it doesn't say the same as what this next slide will show you. These are the mountains that were in my mind. This is a picture of the house that I was born in a village in Greece, and behind are the mountains that always loom large in my village. So I had a very specific sense of what it was. Now this image conjures up emotional and other intellectual responses, and probably needs a caption in order for you to understand which mountain it is. But nonetheless, it's saying something the same and something different from that sentence. Writing tends to be have sequential meaning-making elements, and it prioritizes time, and it has a process that's involved in it. Whereas an image has simultaneous meanings, simultaneous elements that come together, and it actually prioritizes space over time. And as I said, it quite often needs a caption in order to be very specific about what the image refers to. We have a set of paradoxes and challenges. We are making claims for the importance of multimodality into the future, but we also, in our reflection earlier, reminded ourselves that we are entirely embedded in a very singular way of making knowledge around alphabetical literacy, around particular architectures and expectations in traditional schooling, and the kinds of things that we're saying about the importance of multimodality across disciplines really challenge the scope of literacy learning. And even more importantly, and we're going to talk about this later also, is how do you assess performance that's multimodal? All our assessment tools have traditionally been connected to alphabetical literacy and its forms. And of course, what does it mean for the way we engage learners? It's not just about preferences. You know, somebody likes images and somebody likes to write. It's not about preferences. It's the power of each mode. And how do we enable learners, citizens and learners and workers to understand how to utilize that power in the most effective way and how to engage with it? And how do we prepare, if we're preparing people for the real world of life, which is multimodal, everything from, law or business or even the stock exchange doesn't even need humans anymore, just needs an algorithm. You know, you name it, the world and the way it operates now relies on the digital domain in a powerful way. And we as educators need to understand what responsibilities we have in the preparation of learners for that world, because it's not computers, it's not devices, it's not those things that matter. It's the digital that allows for meaning making in different ways, and its reception and circulation, which is revolutionary. And that's the piece that we need to harness for our purposes. So how do we develop effective ways of dealing with it? And effective interdisciplinarity. We talk about interdisciplinarity, but find it really hard to understand what it might mean for us in any particular domain. But the only way we're going to be able to address the meaning-making tools and the complex world of the future requires us to come together as, different disciplines with different problems and similar problems and great challenges. And in the end, how do we assess competence for this brave new world? How do we assess standards in a multimodal way? there are huge challenges for us if we accept the kinds of changes that are occurring in the world at large, not so much in the university or in the school context as they should, but certainly in the world, in the real world that people live in beyond the institutions that we are trained in.